Hello.
Hello.
I can verify that we are definitely live on Twitch right now. So, is everybody okay with me just jumping in?
Go right ahead.
Okay, then I will jump right in. Welcome to today's Docs Clinic. For those of you who might be tuning in for the first time, we alternate at this time on Thursdays, we alternate between doing a Docs Clinic and meeting for our Open Docs working group. If you would like to join our Open Docs working group, we would love to have you. However, be advised that next week we are not having our Open Docs working group because it is the US Thanksgiving. And so we are all going to be gone eating turkey. So sorry, we will not be meeting. So the next Open Docs working group meeting will be 2 weeks from that date. So we're 3 weeks out, I guess. So be aware of that. But if you would like to join the Open Docs working group and make a contribution, we would love to have you. We would even consider moving our meeting time to better accommodate your schedule if you need. I do want to mention one other thing related to the Docs working group, which is that we are preparing to do a really big project where we've got this excellent, nearly 200-page documentation that we hope to convert to RST that has been authored by our former working group captain, Alan Kugler, introducing the core concepts of SALT in a really nice and user-friendly way that is very readable, and it's been vetted by subject matter experts and customers. So that's what we're gearing up to work on for the next release cycle or two. So if that sounds like an interesting project that you would like to help out with, we would welcome your help. So now that the announcements are out of the way, let me check and see if there is anybody on Twitch that would like to get some docs help. Doesn't look like it. I'm looking at the chat. So if you are in the chat and you would like some one-on-one docs help, shout now. I will keep monitoring the chat and I am here to help you. But I remember back when I used to teach academic writing, I would have a librarian come and teach my students about how to use the library. And the librarian would always say, our main job is to help you. And we have tasks that we can keep busy with while we're not helping you. But if you come in and you want our help, we'll drop everything and help you at that moment. That's kind of how these docs clinics are. I have tasks that I can work on. But if you have something you want some help with, I will drop what I'm working on to help you with your documentation. So with that in mind, what I am working on today is consolidating our contributing guides. Why am I doing this? Let's spend a moment talking about the value of community documentation. At the bare minimum, it's really important for the overall health of your open source community to have key community documents. And in fact, that's increasingly becoming something that organizations like GitHub care about and will rate the quality of your the quality of your or let's not say the quality, the overall health of your community based on the existence and quality of these particular community docs. One of those docs, one of those really crucial community docs is your contributing guide. And we do have that guide at SALT, but we have 5 of them. And so that becomes confusing, like which one is the source of truth? Which one should users defer to when they are deciding how to contribute? And what happens if they contradict each other? What happens if we want to make an update in one? Do we push it to all 5? So the goal of my work today is going to be to work on this contributing guide and make sure it's in a better state. With that in mind, this is the first time I've touched these docs, and so I'm going to be what's called the discovery phase, which means figuring out what to do with the docs. So I'm going to share my screen and we will get started. Okay, sharing doc number 1. And what I think I'm going to do is maybe take some notes. I'm really just going to be reading them at this point and identifying where they are the same, where there's redundancy, and where they diverge. And where the divergences are the most important ones, we need to kind of figure out how to resolve those, which one is the source of truth. So that's kind of what I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to open up a Google Doc. And I am going to call this okay. So the first guide we're going to look at looks like this is in the core SALT project. By the way, SALT is not the only community that struggles with this particular problem. My other communities struggle with this problem as well. So we're all trying to find solutions to how to keep from spinning out multiple contribution guides. Okay, so let's read through this one. Oh, nice and short. Developing SALT. The SALT development team is welcoming, positive, and dedicated to helping get new code and fixes into SALT Stack projects. Log into GitHub and get started with one of the largest development communities in the world. The following links should get you started. Let's go ahead and explore them. Make sure those links work. Okay, so we've got a link to the root SALT Stack repository where we have all of our open source stuff. Then we have this developing SALT guide. Okay, and then it looks like a checklist of what you need to do before submitting a PR, which is a very, very long checklist. Okay, I'm gonna note that. Okay, so very brief, simply includes links to the core, the core SALT repository, the developing guide, and the pull request guide. Let's say that's in GitHub. And then the other two are in the core SALT docs. That's my word for the RSTs as opposed to the doc strings. Okay, short and simple, I like it. Looks like the last change made to it was to break out support and contributing docs into separate files, which is a change I support. So the last time this was touched was in 2018. I'm gonna note this too. That's a long time to go without an update. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna check that one off. Okay, now we have the contributing guide and the core SALT documentation. Okay. There is a great need for contributions to SALT, and patches are welcome. The goal here, I feel like I'm reading a story time or something. The goal here is to make contributions clear, make sure there's a trail for where the code has come from, and most importantly, to give credit where credit is due. There's a number of ways to contribute to SALT development, including but not limited to filing well-written bug reports, always a good thing, enhancing the documentation, providing workarounds, patches, and other code without tests, engaging in constructive discussion, helping out SALT on Freenode, the community Slack, the SALT users mailing list, the SALT Stack meetup, or server fault. Telling others about problems you solved with SALT. If this or other SALT documentation is unclear, please review writing SALT documentation. PRs are welcome. Okay. Does that count as another contributing guide? Links to writing SALT documentation. Is this another yet another contributing guide? Okay, quick start. If you just want to get started before reading the rest of this guide, you can get the process started by running the following. Install pre-commit, clone the repo, change directories navigate into the SALT directory, and do pre-commit install. I wonder if that's still true. I would like to validate that. While those commands finish running, finish reading the rest of this guide. Pre-commit. To reduce friction during the development process, SALT Stack uses pre-commit. This tool adds pre-commit hooks to Git, should be capitalized, that's okay, to automate several processes that used to be manual. Rather than having to remember to run several different tools before you commit, you only have to run git commit, and you will be notified about style and lint issues before you ever open a PR. The reason why I'm not sure that this is accurate is because it doesn't address Nox at all. And Nox is a major tool that we use that serves this purpose as well. It gives a warning. Currently, there is an issue with the pip tools compile pre-commit hook on Windows. Windows is also not capitalized. The details around this issue are included here. Please, is that still open? Let's see. It's still open. Okay, at least it was open this year. That's better. Please ensure you export this to skip pip tools compile. SALT coding style. After the 3000 release, SALT Stack is joining the ranks of projects in adopting the black code formatter in order to ease the adoption of unified code formatting style. That helps. I always wondered what black was doing. Now I know. Where black is silent, SALT Stack has its own coding style guide that informs contributors on various style points. You know what? Let me just make sure the link is good. Okay. Okay. I might want to read that on my own sometime. Where black is silent, SALT Stack has its own coding style that informs contributors on various style points. Please review the SALT coding style documentation for information about SALT's particular coding patterns. Within the SALT coding style documentation, oh, hey, there is I just noticed somebody is saying something on Twitch. Give me a moment. Ah, yes, there are many contributing guides. I just got my new laptop and was preparing to walk through my updates to get the stuff ready to go. Yes, I'm assuming this is Wayne. Hi, Wayne. If you're just now joining us, Wayne, we're doing story time in which I am in the process of discovering what is in our contributing docs, and that starts with reading them. So I apologize that today will be reading time. Okay. Anyway, within the SALT coding style documentation, there's a section about running SALT's testing Python linter file, maybe. SALT Stack recommends running this file on any files you are changing with your code contribution before submitting a pull request to SALT's repository. Another thing that I wonder if it's still true. If you've installed pre-commit, This will automatically happen before each commit. Otherwise, see the linting documentation for more details. Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Copyright headers are not needed for files in the SALT project. Files that have existing copyright headers should be considered legacy and not an example to follow. Okay. New features. Feature requests through SALT go through a multi-stage process. All features are added to major releases only. SALT does not accept feature additions in bug fix branches. Therefore, all feature work is done exclusively in the develop branch. Really? Or do we mean the master branch?
We mean master. There's actually a ticket to change that. It
Okay.
just hasn't been changed. Yep.
I apologize if this is annoying to hear me read.
No, it absolutely is not. But I love your commentary. I am laughing on mute many, many times. So don't think that you're not being heard.
No, you're fine. I'm just, I feel a little bit like I'm Mystery Science Theater 3000, and I hope that tone is appropriate for.
I think it's completely appropriate, and I love it.
And what were the other things I was talking about? Like, everything has looked good so far. I don't think there were other things. Okay. So far, this is looking to be recently updated-ish, at least 3,000 or later. So that's a good sign that this is being maintained, but we shall see. Okay, to formally propose a new feature, the proposal must take the form of an RFC. To create an RFC, we should mention that we call them we call them SFPs? Is that
SEPs, SEPs.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
SEPs, and I think I also have a ticket out there to update that to then point to the SEPs repo and the SEPs process. That's it's in the same GitHub org, but it's a separate repo.
Okay. Good to know.
Mm-hmm.
All right. To create an RFC copy, the template file found in that directory of the SALT code base, fill the outline with the reasoning for the new feature and with implementation details. Upon submitting the written RFC via a pull request, it will be reviewed by the core development team as well as the community. Once discussed and agreed upon, the RFC may be merged. A merged RFC indicates that a feature has been accepted and will be added to an upcoming release of SALT.
Yeah, this actually probably needs to be split into two separate things because we have a template that's like a feature request that's small.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want a feature request to do this thing on this module that we do everywhere else. You know, that's a fairly small change, you know.
Yeah.
And then we have the SEPs process where it's a very large change. Yeah.
Wayne, are you saying that you had some updates to this document? Anyway, it's all good. Okay, so we used to call them RFCs, Wayne says.
That's right. So we used to do like a request for comment, and we had a template, and it was this process, and then we moved to SEPs. And I love the SEPs process a lot better because I think it's just more detailed for some of those larger changes. But yeah, this piece of the documentation needs to be kind of overhauled all the way around.
Yeah. Talking out loud and having Wayne here reminds me that this feels like choose your own adventure. I'm just talking out loud, but this document needs to be designed more like how do you want to contribute to SALT? Do you want to develop? Do you want to just use it? Do you want to, you know?
And that's where I always go to.
Request? Yeah, you know.
Yeah,
so.
And that is when we talked about it previously, the main thing that we talked about was having sort of one source of truth that all these sort of 5 or 6 documents would stem from. And that piece would start with sort of a choose your own adventure style, like ask the question like, well, tell us what you want to contribute to SALT because you're using it as in this way, or you want to submit a feature request or a bug report or a security vulnerability, and then we would take you down that path, or you want something else. And we kind of had, I think it was 3 is what we got to. I don't remember what they were exactly now.
Yeah.
And maybe even a 4th of like, well, I'm just interested in what you do. And then that would kind of take you more around like this.
Yep.
New features, pull requests, kind of everything.
Yep.
And that's as far as we got. But yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. And that's going to take some planning and thinking through what the different user stories are and what paths they go on, and making sure that
some personas, yeah.
Yeah, and just a nice little decision tree could be good.
Exactly.
So yeah.
And we may even could start that with 2 and then branch from there. Like
exactly,
if you're
you could
using
be like,
SALT or
this is,
developing SALT.
yeah, these are the, this is the SALT development, this is the user track, start there, and then we could add additional paths later. Like,
Yep.
You want to contribute to the documentation of SALT, take this path, you want to, stuff like that. So
exactly. But yeah, we kind of just jump right in that we assume that this is where you're going when you come to the contributing guide. And that's not entirely untrue in a lot of projects, but we are making some assumptions that I think we could not do and help guide people better with that, like what we were talking about. So how are you using, answer a few questions, and then we'll guide you down that path.
And it could help to get like a little bit of feedback from the community too about what are the most common use cases, which ones need to be supported first. So yeah, that kind of thing. All right. Sending a GitHub pull request. Sending pull requests on GitHub is the preferred method for receiving contributions. The workflow advice below mirrors GitHub's own guide. I just can't help but explore every link, sorry. So it's explaining here on GitHub how to, kind of the basics, okay? Fork salt stack /salt on GitHub. Make a local clone of your fork. Skip this step if you follow the quick start. Add salt stack as a git remote. Yep, here's how to add your own remote. I don't know, I kind of feel like, yeah, so talking out loud about this kind of stuff, I'm reminded of a really nice passage from Every Page is Page One, which is considered a really fundamental text in technical writing, in which he says that you need to identify reader dependencies and subject dependencies. And by that, we mean if you're writing a recipe, to use an example, and you're telling somebody how to make spaghetti, or something like that, some pasta dish, do you include in the recipe the instructions for boiling noodles? No, because that's something that most people working on a recipe should know how to do. You don't tell them like turn your burner to high, fill it with, you just say boil the noodles, that kind of a thing. This strikes me as holding their hands just a little too much. It's like I like the idea of linking out to other sources that probably explain how to clone a repo and get started and stuff like that first, rather than documenting every step, because it's like the equivalent of writing how to boil noodles in your spaghetti recipe. So just mentioning that, talking out loud. Okay, create a new branch in your clone. All right, like these kind of notes are okay to like talk about what counts as a branch for salt stack. In our community, a branch is this. That's helpful information. Edit and commit the changes to your branch. Oh, we're advocating them here. I'm fine with Vim. I don't have any issues with Vim, but you know, that's a little handholdy. Okay, I like this. I like this. The how to write a descriptive commit title. It's good. But it's also very handholdy. It could be something that could be linked out to in a separate like guide on, I don't know. I'll think about it, but anyway. Taking a few moments to explain why you made the change will save time and effort in the future when others come to investigate a change. A clear explanation of why something changed can help future developers avoid introducing bugs or breaking an edge case. If your change fixes a bug or implements a feature already filed in the issue tracker, be sure to reference the issue number in the commit message body. Oh, noticing that Wayne is saying some things. Yeah, he's liking the idea of simplifying this guide. It's a tricky thing because we have to ask ourselves. I mean, I know that some people who do come to SALT see that it's a major open source project and want to get involved in open source. And they're like, well, I'll pick one of the high rated ones. That SALT one looks good. And we want to I want to give back to the community, and I want to train and I want to mentor people, but there you can also have a certain baseline expectation, like, okay, you want to contribute to open SALT, first get yourself up to speed on the basics of working in open source, you know. So yeah, more good comments from Wayne. He says that paragraph is a perfect point because many changes in our history is completely missing any kind of historical information. So yeah. All right. If your change fixes a bug or implements a feature already filed in the issue tracker, be sure to reference the issue number in the commit message body. If you get stuck, there are many introductory Git resources here. Yeah, and we could have just linked to that, I think, but or you know, mentioned some of our favorites and talked about it generally, like how to do it. Okay, push your locally committed changes to your GitHub fork. Here's how you do it. Again, why are we teaching how to use Git and GitHub? Shouldn't Git and GitHub teach how to do that? Okay, but it's all good. You may want to rebase before pushing to work out any potential conflicts. If you do rebase and the push is rejected with a non-fast forward comment, then run git status. You'll likely see a message about the branches diverging. Do not perform a git pull or git merge here. Instead, add force with lease to the end of the git push command to get changes pushed to your fork. Pulling or merging, while they will resolve the non-fast forward issue, will likely add extra commits to the pull requests that are not part of your changes. This is actually helpful for me. I do have that problem when I'm working in SALT, and I don't have that problem when contributing to other Git repositories. So it's actually not a bad idea to talk about how to manage PRs and how to keep your PR up to date with the main branch, because that happens to me where I'm like constantly trying to update my branch just to get my PR ready to go in. Find the branch on your GitHub SALT fork, open a pull request, and do all of the things. I don't love this. 8 to 1, 8 to 1, then back to 9. Don't love that. SALT project members will view your pull requests and automated tests will run on it. I actually think this is where it would be helpful to give our SLO so that we can set expectations for when a pull request will get reviewed, since we do kind of have to manage that just a little bit. It's not always instantaneous is what I'm saying. A note about Jenkins. Pull requests against SALT are automatically tested on a variety of operating systems and configurations. On average, these tests take a couple of hours. Depending on your GitHub notification settings, you may also receive an email message about the test results. Test progress and results can be found there. That is useful information too. I would keep that in. SALT's branch topology. Salt will only have one active branch, which is called the master. This will include bug fixes. So it's right here. It wasn't right earlier in the document. So at least there's that. This will include bug fixes, features, and CVE, common vulnerabilities and exposures. The release will be, I don't even, like, do we put an S at the end? Like a lowercase s style question. The release will be cut from the master when the time comes for a new release, which should be every 3 to 4 months. To be able to merge code, the code must have, why, this is a formatting issue. The code must have a well-written test. Note that you are only expected to write tests for what you did, not the whole modules or function. All tests must pass. SaltStack employee that reviews your pull request might request changes or deny the pull request for various reasons. It'd be nice to know what to do then. What happens then? Are your options, like, if I quickly respond, will I get a quick re-review? Might be nice to know what the SLO is there. Salt uses a typical branch strategy. Master is the next expected release. Code should only make it to the master once it's production ready. That means that typical changes, fixes, and features should have accompanying tests. Closing GitHub issues from commits. SaltStack encourages using the magic keywords to close a GitHub issue. These should appear in the commit message directly. Could see that. Thank you. Wayne points out that CVE is the singular, which to me suggests we should be putting an S, a lowercase s at the end of that sentence, but minor issues. Release naming conventions. A new convention will start when Salt releases 3000. Yep. Every new release name will increment by 1 Salt last release number plus 1. This naming convention is very different from past releases, which was da 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 da. Yep. Good to know. This would be useful on different paths, like the user path and things like that. Handling CVE. If a CVE is discovered, Salt will create a new release that only contains the test and patch for the CVE. This method should improve the upgrade process by reducing the chances of breaking something. Backporting pull requests. On rare occasions, a serious bug will be found in the middle of a release cycle. These bugs will require a point release. Contributors should still submit fixes directly to master, but they should also call attention to the fact that it addresses a critical issue and will need to be backported. Does the SALT team handle it after that point? Is a question that I leave with after having read that. Keeping SALT forks in sync. SALT advances quickly. It is therefore critical to pull upstream changes from upstream into your fork on a regular basis. Nothing is worse than putting hard work into a pull request only to see bunches of merge conflicts because it has diverged too far from upstream. Yep. Story of my life. Anyway, the following assumes origin is the name of your fork and upstream is the name of, okay, yeah, I mean, this is Git stuff. We don't need to teach people Git stuff. Git needs to teach them Git stuff, or they can use one of the many thousands of Git helper guides out there. They don't necessarily need to use us.
Amen.
It's a third-party app. We shouldn't have to document third-party apps unless it's like something special to us,
Yep, we should link, just like you said.
Yep, we can
I agree.
produce a lot of content that way.
So much.
Posting patches to the mailing list. Patches will also be accepted by email. Format patches using git format patch and send them to the SALT user's mailing list. The contributor will then get credit for the patch, and the SALT community will have an archive of the patch and a place for discussion. Issue and pull request labeling system. SaltStack uses several labeling schemes to help facilitate code contributions and bug resolution. See the labels and milestones documentation for more information. Mention bot. Salt runs a mention bot, which notifies contributors who might be able to help review incoming pull requests based on their past contributions to files which are being changed. If you do not wish to receive these notifications, please add your GitHub handle to the blacklist. By the way, VMware does not like us using that term. Just making a side note about that. In the mention bot file located in the root of the Salt repository. Bootstrap script changes. Salt's Bootstrap script, known as bootstrap salt.sh, in the Salt repo has its own repository contributing guidelines and release cadence. All the changes to the Bootstrap script should be made to Salt Bootstrap repo. Any requests made to the bootstrap salt.sh file in the Salt repository will be automatically overwritten upon the next stable release of the Bootstrap script. For more information on the release process or how to contribute to the Bootstrap script, see their contributing guidelines. Interesting. So we have like, I mean, so that introduces another web of complexity here. Is that like, what is the scope of this contributing guide? How many repos does it cover? Because clearly it doesn't cover the Bootstrap guide, which has its own contribution guide.
Great question.
I
don't know.
Go for it, Gareth.
Yeah,
Go for it.
Wondering, so like one of the paragraphs that you just mentioned that kind of caught my attention as you were reading it was people sending patches to the Salt users list.
I know, that was weird to me too.
I've never seen anyone send a patch to that list, and I don't know if, in my experience, I've never actually pulled one in and with the project myself, so I don't know if anyone else has.
That seemed to me a strange way to receive patches.
I mean, that's how like a lot of projects do, like the Linux kernel. It's not uncommon to do that. I just don't know if that's something, and Git itself allows that feature. I just don't know if that's something we want to necessarily support going forward. I feel like
I would agree.
GitHub
Document
is a better.
Yep, 100% agree. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. I was done.
Yeah, like I 100% agree. Generally a rule that I follow, because I think a lot of times in documentation, you'll find that there are multiple ways of doing something. When that happens, people always ask me, okay, well, do we document all the different ways that you can do something? Generally, what I prefer to do is to just say, let's document the preferred way, and then we can like mention in a little side note another way of doing things. And if you really don't want people using that way, don't mention it at all. So I think we should definitely remove that. If nobody uses it and has anybody tested it to see what happens? Like if nobody's really using it, I mean, it's possible since this is here that people have been using it and we weren't aware. But I would definitely recommend removing that. So now that I've reached the end of this, let me kind of sum up my thoughts on it. Let me kind of do a quick. Okay, so a lot of this guide covers how to use Git. Why are we doing that? Let's just link out to our preferred sources for learning about Git. Since this is basic knowledge, anyone who wants to contribute to open source should have. That's just part of being in open source. It's not Salt, it's open source. No mention, we mention pre-commit, but not Knox. That seems like an oversight. one. Okay, let's see what else. Okay. Yeah, this is a little too hand-holdy. We need to get rid of this, I think. However, I do like this, but not necessarily here. And then I feel like we're missing what expectations should a contributor have when submitting a PR? How long will it take to get it reviewed? It's just good to like set the expectations so that they don't expect that it's going to happen in a day or two. Are there any best practices to follow to ensure it gets reviewed faster? Some of this is kind of addressing that, but we could reframe it to, you know, because that's what people are interested in. I want to get action on, I've done the work, I want to get feedback and get it merged in. And so people would probably want to know what are all the things that they can do to ensure that that process happens faster. You know, and it might be worth mentioning, like occasionally, like we do have port jams to and PR jams to burn down our PR backlog, and that people are welcome to contribute to that. I'll just mention these notes are going to be messy. I'll clean them up later. Oh, salt branch topology. That's a little different from salt topology. Yeah. Okay. Okay, made a few notes. Couple of things that I think are missing from the contributing guide. When I start out with a new open source project, I want to know, like, how do I talk to people in the project? How do I, like, do you meet? How do I join your meetings? And can I just grab an issue and start working on one? What are the tribal customs of this tribe that I'm wanting to join? You know, it really is. It's like, what's our culture? You know, yeah, exactly. How do I connect is what Wayne said. How do, you know, what if I want to be mentored, if I'm really passionate about SALT and making a difference to this project, how do I meet people? How do I join a working group? How do I get on Slack? How do I, you know?
Sure. So I've actually wondered about this, and I was going to ask you about this because I'd love your take on it. There's the README that's in the repo that if you sort of stumble upon SALT, has a lot of this information. Mm-hmm. And then how do we link back to that in this? And where does that fit in the contributing guide? And where do we repeat and where do we not? Those are kind of my questions.
I think that's like a really good content strategy to ask about this. Like, because we're going over the contributing guide right now, but really you can't think about one community doc without thinking about the other community docs. README is a classic example. Code of conduct is another classic example. I mean, I didn't see us link to our code of conduct anywhere in here, and that's kind of important. If you're going to be engaging with our community, we want you to be polite and follow our rules and things like that. You know, so like what we need to do is kind of define this is the content that goes in the README, this is the content that goes in the contributing guide, this is the content that goes in the code of conduct, and the other core community docs that are standard to most open source things. The README is squishy, I think, in open source. Does anybody else have any opinions about the scope of a README versus a contributing guide? I would think the README is like, this is what the project is. This is the purpose of the project. This is what SALT does. And then it links out to other documents for more information. So that's what I think of when I think of the README. But anybody disagree? Okay, Wayne also says, let's not repeat ourselves and let's link out a lot. I think linking is going to be the thing here that really helps. So Wayne says, I think it depends on the project, but I think of the README as, this is what we're about. Here's how to figure things out. Yep. I think a README is kind of a little bit more geared towards the user. The contributing guide is a little more geared towards the, I want to be part of this project and actually start submitting pull requests and joining working groups and, you know, things like that. Whereas the README is a little bit more like, well, I want to, what is this project? How can it help me? How will it solve my problems? Mm-hmm. What can I, you know?
Right, and our README is kind of a hybrid of a contributor guide and a README as far as I can tell. And so that's where I'm like, okay, what are we doing here? And what should this look like?
Yeah, exactly. So I almost think like what we need to do is zoom out and create a content strategy for README covers this. Here's the scope and the purpose of the README. In our repo, here's contributing and what it covers. And then they can just link between each other. You know, if it's like, wait a minute, you're here at the README, but you really want the contributing guide? Here you go. Here's the link to that. You know, and so it's clear what the different documents do. So Wayne says, README is the project cliff notes. I would agree on that. Although, I'm sorry to be a pedant, Wayne, but did you know it's actually Cliff's '*s notes? It's weird, but
it is. It's weird, but yeah, I think that our README could be condensed. It seems to have a lot of information that I would consider goes in more a contributor guide, or links or something. Yeah, so, and I think some of that. I think what we're looking at with these different documents too is they all kind of grew organically. And so now we need to kind of come together and have that content strategy. Like
it's time to weed the garden. The garden produced some lovely flowers, but it also produced a few weeds that we need to clear out. So
time to clear out.
It happens. Mm-hmm. It also happens when you don't have somebody designing it too. So
right.
All right. Next one, which is why a content strategy helps, you know, and that's what we're here for. Okay, this one is in the, okay. This is at the GitHub root level repo, and it's the contributing guide here. Okay, here's a little bit of GitHub history for you about stuff like this. I don't know, like GitHub had this great idea where it was like, okay, we'll help new contributors measure the health of your community. And the way you're going to do that is you're going to create this .github repo, and it should have your core community docs in it. And then any of your repos that are anywhere in your organization will inherit these docs. The problem with the .github repo is it doesn't actually place the physical contributing guide file, for example, in the other repos. So they don't inherit it. I've tested this myself. This is how I know. Because it seemed to me like this was the panacea. This was the solution we were looking for. GitHub had done it for us, where if you put your community docs in this .github repo, all of your other repos will inherit it, right? And so if no matter which repo they're in, they'll see the same contributing guide, the same code of conduct, et cetera, et cetera. And it seemed that if you replaced the contributing guide in a different repo, so let's say we'll use the Bootstrap one as an example. Let's say we had its own contributing guide in that one, it would overwrite the one that is in the GitHub repo. So it seemed like a really cool solution. Unfortunately, I think GitHub didn't fully develop this out because they haven't made it very easy to discover these documents in the other repos. The only way you can get to this document in a different repo, let me open up Salt as an example. Where's my Salt? Salt. Okay. If I go to Salt, and I go to Insights and Community, it should inherit the contributing guide here, and this is how you would discover it. But you have to go to Insights, Community, etc. to find that document. It doesn't appear here, which is where you would expect to find the document. That mismatch to me is a major flaw with this feature, and I intend to open up a bug with GitHub about it, but I keep forgetting. But sorry I went on that tangent, but it's helpful to know that this is not the panacea that, sorry, Derek, that Derek thinks it is. I've tested it myself and it will not solve our problems. Okay. What I would suggest would be instead, to satisfy GitHub's community health document insights requirement, have this file and then link to the real one, which would probably be in the core Salt docs or something like that. So that's my recommendation for this particular piece. Sorry, that was a long tangent. Okay. You know, another thing that strikes me is it would be handy to like have a tour of the repos, the salt stack repos. Which ones should we care about and which ones should we not? Which one's the main one? That's something that you need to know, and you only really get through tribal knowledge by contributing to an open source community a lot of times. So, although you can figure it out pretty quickly based on the number of PRs and merges and things like that. So, all right. License notice. The SALT project is open and encouraging to code contributions. Please be advised that all code contributions will be licensed under the Apache 2.0 license. We cannot accept contributions that already hold a license other than Apache 2.0 without explicit exception. Good information, absolutely crucial to any open source project, super, super crucial. Does it go in the contributing guide? No, I don't think so. Usually you should have a license file here. Here's another problem that I have with the GitHub thing. I would love it if the nice thing about having this folder would be if you could create a license file and have it inherit to all your repos. Because it seems ridiculous to me that, and GitHub forces you to do this anytime you create a new repo, it wants you to add that license file from the very beginning. But if you just want all your repos to have the same license file, isn't there a way to facilitate that, GitHub? Come on, GitHub. Anyway, that's my beef. All right, we do need the license stuff. I just question whether it should go in the contributing guide. Reporting issues. The SALT issue tracker is used for feature requests and bug reports. Doesn't link out. A bug is a demonstrable problem that is caused by the code in the repository. Please read the following guide before you report an issue. Use the GitHub issue search. Check if the issue has already been opened. If it has been, please comment on the existing issue. Check if the issue has been fixed. Various point release branches, such as that one, may already contain a fix. Please try to reproduce the bug against the latest Git head or the latest release. Isolate the demonstrable problem. Make sure the code in the project's repository is definitely responsible for the issue. Include a reproducible example. Provide the steps which led you to that problem. Please try to be as detailed as possible in your report. What's your environment? What steps will reproduce the issue? What operating system? What would you expect to be the outcome? All these details will help people assess and fix any potential bugs. Including an output will always help. Valid bugs will be categorized for the next release and worked on as quickly as resources can be reasonably allocated. Features. SALT is always working to be more powerful. Feature additions and requests are welcomed. When requesting a feature, it will be categorized for a release or placed under the feature label. If a new feature is desired, the fastest way to get it into SALT is to contribute to the code. Before starting on a new feature, an issue should be filed for it. The one requesting the feature will be able to then discuss the feature. By the way, side note, it's really interesting to read your text out loud and hear how it doesn't work. It's a really great way to check your own writing.
It's actually an awesome way, and it's funny to hear. It's funny when I hear myself say it sometimes, because I'm like, what? Wait, what did I just say?
I used to compose my graduate papers out loud, and people thought I was crazy, but it really helps. Anyway, the one requesting the feature will then be able to then discuss the feature with the SALT team and discover the best way to get the feature into SALT, and if the feature makes sense. It is extremely common that the desired feature will already be completed. Look for it in the docs. Ask about it first in IRC, Slack, and on the mailing list. Do we really do the mailing list? Do we do a mailing list?
So the mailing list is 2 different Google groups.
Okay.
And we use them, and we do use IRC.
Okay.
So that's correct. The mailing list, though, is like we don't even link to anything there. So that's like SALT users.
Yeah.
Mailing list. And,
exactly.
Yeah.
And this is, again, like I was saying earlier, where we want to decide what our primary way is, and then we can mention the others, but we want to advocate one way, if possible. It is also common that the problem would be solved by the new feature. It is also common that the problem which would be solved by the new feature can be easily solved another way, which is a great reason to ask first. Fixing issues. If you wish to help us fix an issue, your reporting SALT's documentation already includes information to help you set up a development environment under developing SALT. Did it? Oh yeah, we haven't looked at that guide yet. Okay, sorry. SALT text contributing documentation is also helpful as it explains sending and pull requests, keeping your SALT branches in sync, and knowing which branch new features or bug fixes should be submitted against. Fix the issue you have in hand, and if possible, also add a test case to SALT's testing suite. Then create a pull request, and that's it. Where does that link to? Okay, good link. SALT's development team will review your fix, and if everything is okay, your fix will be merged into SALT's code. This. I don't know why that's there. That's fine.
Saw that too and thought,
all right, this has some good content, but yeah, I think this should, in a matchup between this one and the guide we just read, the other guide wins. I would just integrate it into this one. Well, we have reached the end of our time. And so I will resume this in 2 weeks, I guess. Unless, I guess Derek handles the next Docs Clinic. So I will resume this in a month. I'll probably look at it more between now and then. This is a good start, though, and interesting reading. Okay.
Yes.
Well, join
Thank
us
you.
not next week, but in 2 weeks for the next Docs Clinic with Derek. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Elisa.
Yep. Bye-bye.